I'm going to start the show today, and again, it's about the government rolling out tougher crimes. This is another new piece of legislation to make coward punches an official offence, complete with tougher sentencing. Coward punches are also known as king hits, and where the strikes are delivered to the victim's head or neck without any warning, and when the victim is unable to defend themselves. Under the new laws, one-punch attacks which cause grievous bodily harm comes with an assault offence and associated maximum penalties of 8 years imprisonment when the offender intended to cause injury. That jumps to 15 years when it was intentional, and if someone dies, it's life in prison. These offences also are now included in the three strikes law framework. Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith, gosh, he's been busy, and it's only Tuesday. But he pitched this as overdue, and it is. These coward punches are deadly and too often punished lightly. People can be killed, yet perpetrators often receive lenient and insufficient sentences. Walk Without Fear was established after the death of MMA fighter Fovake in 2021 in an unprovoked attack. The charitable trust is welcoming tougher sentencing laws. Trust board member Mike Angove says it is a step in the right direction, and he joins me now. Mike, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Leah. Good to be here.
Been a while, my friend, to talk to you. Good to see you.
It has indeed, but it's a great topic to start off with. The government's certainly moving in the right direction in defining the coward punch as a specific act. And it's something I've said on a couple of occasions today. We have no problem visualising the damage a knife can cause and visualising the damage a gun can cause. But for some reason, there seems to be a mental block, particularly amongst the judiciary in particular, and defence lawyers unsurprisingly, that the damage a closed fist delivered to someone who is unsighted when they have no chance of defending themselves is any less lethal. Sure, with a knife you might miss a vital organ. Sure, with a punch you may happen to fall on the shoulder. Rather than what frequently happens is you are felled, you're immediately separated from your consciousness, and you crash into the concrete, into the pavement, onto the corner of a brick building. With no conscious ability to prevent your head, your most valuable organ, from being damaged. And that's what we're looking at here, the potential lethality of the act, not just in terms of adding the punishment on and having a clear and definable consequence, but as a consequence of this and other actions that we've been taken over the last few years since Fo's death, and many other people as well, bring it into the public context. It's now a topic of conversation. And now it's at the point where there's no excuse. It's not a king hit. It never has been a king hit. It always has been a cowardly, gutless act. And now there's no excuse for not understanding that when you deliver a coward punch, it is considered that you have potentially lethal intent. And that's really what's happened here. If you look along the margins, yes, they've increased sentencing. Yes, they've made it a specific act, but they've made it very clear that this particular pathetic act from a cowardly person has potentially lethal consequences, and there can be no hiding from that fact now.
Mike, we've mentioned Fovake. And was he the impetus to start Walk Without Fear? And what does the charity do?
Well, yes, obviously Fo, he was killed in 2021, 9 days after being felled by a coward punch. And all along, the four attackers there are actually four attackers, four very big men who attacked two medium-sized men on their way home, all of whom had some previous form. One of whom who'd been the killer who'd been banned from rugby for king-hitting a referee, many years earlier. So this is not like it's someone who learned from their mistakes as a 19-year-old. in their mid-30s, they go out and kill someone.
Mm.
Uh, the the killer, and he deserves to be described as a killer, Daniel Havili, delivered a fully leveraged left hook from the blind side of foe as he was begging and negotiating with another member of that group for the attack to stop on his brother. His brother had been um, bollocked, is probably the best way of describing it, kicked and punched through a shop doorway.
Jeez.
And he was felled by a single shot. After he was felled by the shot, Havili stepped over his unconscious body. And if you're familiar with violence, which unfortunately I've been involved in and around that kind of thing, particularly in hospitality for a very long time, you're familiar with guys who have who know that they have hurt someone, who knew exactly what they were doing. He didn't take a second look. He knew he was felled. He stepped over him, walked over to where his brother was, and proceeded to launch into him with knees and punches. That is a very experienced proponent of violence who got
Mm.
2 years and 9 months and served less than half of that. And
Wow.
was described by the judiciary, by the judge, um, as delivering not the most strong or not the strongest of punches. And I can
Oh
tell
my
you as an
gosh.
expert, that was a fully leveraged left hook. And so I know there has been criticism from both the Law Society and the judiciary more widely around the
Mm.
necessity for the law. But I would suggest, and I'd suggest public sentiment sits and says, you know what? We are tired of uh, poor precedents being set. We are
Yeah.
tired of multiple discounts. And we are tired of the seriousness of certain crimes not being recognized. I mean, so the guys who perpetrated the attack, I think, got 9 months. You can go and steal some power and get 8 or 9 months home detention, right? And I remember a serious, shellfish overexploiter got 4 years, which is more than this guy got.
Oh
So
gosh.
I think we need to have a look at the seriousness of certain crimes and
Yeah.
define them as we did with the strangulation laws and point out the potential lethality. And so for that reason, we're so firm on it.
Mike, you have spoken before about shifting violent culture. Where do you think we need to start changing how society responds at the moment?
Well, I mean, again, when people or when political parties in particular, they tend to align themselves either with rehabilitation, and programs to bring people out of violent pasts and violent cultures, or they align themselves purely with the punitive side.
Yeah.
Now the truth is, if people weren't politically partisan and just tied to political views just on the basis of I'm aligned either left or right, they'd have a look and go, well, things actually don't work in isolation. You need education and you need to be into the schools and you need to be, particularly in the current environment where you've got the TikTok generation, you've got almost video game violence being perpetrated on the streets. That's where it needs to start. Um, and in doing that and starting there, you're showing that there are consequences. You're looking at some of the cues that lead up to those altercations in the street, and you're educating these kids not just on the punitive consequences, but on the impact serious injury or death can have on the victims, on the family, and even the perpetrator. There's often massive guilt associated with that as well. So that's where you start with the education there. But by the same token, you also have to say this is serious, this has serious consequences, and this will have punitive consequences as well. And then you have that discussion. And it's
Mm.
only when you're having that discussion, when you know that it's taken seriously, that we can start to get some cut through there. Yes, there's numerous other ways to work with people who've been brought up in a violent family situation, to help them along the way. Absolutely, fully in favour of this, but I'm also not in favour of not having more serious consequences, particularly with acts that are very clearly potentially lethal. And again, I'm going to restate this so that we can be absolutely clear. If I hit you when you are not looking, I am deliberately trying to separate you from consciousness as fast as possible when you don't have an opportunity to defend yourself, and the consequences of that are potentially lethal.
Mike, where do we sit? I mean, this is a good thing, but where do we sit when you look around the world, especially with Australia? Because, you know, they had got onto this a lot earlier. And I know you spoke about politics. I know previous politicians, you know, we can go back 8-9 years trying to bring this in. Do you have a theory to why this has been so long? You know, we've had so many, sadly, some people that if they haven't lost their lives, you know, they've been put into a vegetative state or permanently damaged somehow. Why has it taken so long?
I think what I alluded to before is people are generally aligned for some reason, either left or right. They fail to discuss things on an issue by issue basis. The assumption